Welcome back to Talking Pop Culture. And we have a special episode here with an interview with Lesser Known Comics, an awesome independent label over there in America. I was about to say Australia, in America. Obviously, to the side of me, got my wingman Rocket. How are you today, buddy?
Good, mate. Looking forward to this.
It's be good fun. We have down the bottom there, we'll start off with Mark, the founder of Lesser Known Comics. How are you this evening for you?
Yeah, doing great. And maybe we'll be out of Australia. It looks like I'm gonna move into Rocket's house. Look at that.
His freaking library/toy shop. And then down the bottom there we have Ray Garza. Is that how I say it?
Yeah, Garza. Yeah.
Who done the variant cover of Digital Lizards of Doom and is a writer and illustrator of an upcoming book, which I'll let him obviously talk about. So, Mark, since we spoke last, you had the Digital Lizards of Doom was coming?
Yeah. So it launches on Tuesday, the 29th. So, yeah, whatever day this goes, goes on there.
Wednesday for us, then that would be, I would assume, because we're a day ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4. You got about 5 series now, by the looks of it. Creator series, is that correct, or am I? Digital Lizards of Doom, Roswell. So I Worked at the Mall. Now this one you need to help me figure out the whole horror.
It's like the horror, but it's spelled like, or it's like horror. Pronounced like the horror. You know,
horror.
David, an Aussie accent.
Yeah.
And then you got World Eater.
Yeah, and then Tank McGregor, which will be the one that we release right after Digital Lizards of Doom. So this will be our first Kickstarter since September. And trying to really professionalize the organization to make it actually use marketing correctly and understand advertisements and stuff like that. And I didn't even realize last Kickstarter that we didn't do any podcasts during that time period. And within a 30-day span here, we'll have done, I think, 20. Yeah. So it's a way bigger and more concerted effort of a push. But Tank McGregor is an amazing book as well. And it's good to feel like I'm so stoked for Digital Lizards of Doom book 3. And then just waiting around the corner is just another book that I'm just over the moon about. So yeah, it's a good feeling to have.
Well, we'll get Ray here to talk about his book Tank McGregor. But before we do, let me ask Mark: is the Talking Pop 15 promo code still running?
Yeah.
It is. Well, there you go, guys. I'll say it nice and sweet at the start. If you want, jump over to lesserknowncomics.com. I'll have the link in the description below. Go check out their stuff. Use the code TalkingPop, TALKINGPOP, and the number 1515, and they'll receive 15% off if I'm correct.
Yeah. So
there you go. So especially guys in Australia, jump over there and hit them up. You can get digital and some are in floppies. Am I correct, or is it?
Actually, most of the stuff that we're doing digital, we just started moving over to a website called Global, because most of our digitals are free. And so we moved that over to a website called Global Comics with an X. They're the new, trying to be a competitor with Comixology. Really rad folks. And their user interface is really nice. A little better, I think, than downloading a PDF and trying to scroll through a PDF on whatever you're trying to read on. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, that's good to know that you've gone over there as well. Ray, tell us about Tank McGregor, mate. What, obviously without spoiling it or anything, sell us your awesome adventurous book that you wrote and illustrated, correct?
That is correct, yes. Yeah, man. Tank McGregor. It is just my love letter to 80s action movies, and the action heroes of the 80s, the Schwarzeneggers, the Van Dammes. Not so much as Steven Seagal, so I don't like that guy. I never did like that guy. But it's got some deep cuts, his spaceship. Its name is the spaceship's name is the Dudikoff, after Michael Dudikoff. I don't know if anybody knows that guy, but that's a deep cut.
That is a deep cut.
I think you recognize it, Rocket.
He's an 80s, 90s film guru, mate. He'll know all the people you mentioned.
All right, then that is just for him. So yeah, it's full of like one-liners, but they're sort of like nonsensical one-liners. I try to like not take it too seriously. You know, it's sort of like cartoony in a way, and I try to subvert most of the action tropes. So they'll do like one-liners, but they'll be like one-liners that no one gets and have nothing to do with the situation, but they're like really badass, you know. So so it's just full of little tiny jokes like that. And yeah, it all started out. I mean, I've been doodling and drawing my whole life, and it just sort of got to the point where I started putting a story to the doodles, and eventually I just little by little started working on this comic. I wrote a 15-page sort of story outline of what I wanted to do, and I just started building it from there. And then I saw that I needed I need a few pages here in the middle, so I started adding to it and like giving more meat to the bones. And before I knew it, it was 3 years later, and suddenly I had like a full book, 121 pages, and decided, you know what, I should probably get it colored now, because why not? And so then I got it colored, and once it was colored and I had it, I'm like, maybe I should get it published or print it out. So then I printed it out. Suddenly I have all these copies. I mean, like, it was never really like a goal of mine to like make a book and like have it printed. It just sort of happened little by little. Now I'm super into it, and now I want to make more, and just constantly make Tank McGregor stories. But as it was happening, it was just this thing that I kept working on weekends and whenever I had the chance,
So this is your first book you've obviously published then, is it? Your first work?
Yes. It is the first thing I've ever published for sure. I mean, I've done little short stories and little short comic books that don't go past my own computer, my desktop. I've never done anything with them. Although now I'm thinking I want to maybe like look at them again and see if I can maybe release them and show them to Mark, actually. See if he feels they're good for like a nice little 5-pager or something. But yeah,
so did you send it to Mark, or did Mark poach you?
I actually contacted Mark. So I don't know if he remembers how it went down, but once I started putting my book online and I had it printed and I tried to put it in. I mean, I've been putting it in like local comic book shops and stuff, and I just got it a lot more into the comic book scene on Instagram, and lesser known comics popped up on my feed. And the first thing I saw of them was just a big sign that says treating artists like humans since 2020, or I forgot when it was. So I really liked that. So I decided to send him a message. But the first time I sent a message, I didn't hear back from anybody. And I don't know. but I didn't send it straight to Mark. I think I sent it to Brianna, to be honest. I'm not sure who I sent it to, but I didn't hear back from anybody. And then like a month passed, and that same thing popped up again. And I decided to actually go to the website and look it up. And I saw in the crew, Mark was the first guy on there. So I'm like, I'm going to email this guy directly. So I messaged him on Instagram. And then I think I was something like, hey, I really like what you guys do. What would I have to do to get my book in your hands, or just to get you to look at my stuff? And Mark was just like, yeah, send me your book right away. And I think within like 3 weeks or whatever, I was on the phone with him, and we were just talking for about an hour and a half about just comics and what he's doing with Lesser Known and what I did with Tank McGregor. And before I knew it, we're working together.
Oh, that's a nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think always, like, and especially, for any creators out there, reaching out on Instagram, where it's like, you just click right on the link, right on their profile, you can see all the art right away, versus it coming into like you always want to have a way to do submissions via email and stuff like that. Just Instagram is just like, you can also just gauge like a lot more too of, once you went into Ray's feed, you could see, oh, like he's already printed the book. He's already done all this stuff. He's already going out to comic shops and things like that. So it's like, dude's already putting in the work, right? So then like a lot of the follow-up questions you would have on a submission, just see how committed somebody is to a process. All your answers are like right there, So yeah, it's definitely, those are the two things. Like, always be persistent, right? Because emails get lost in the rest of the stuff, right? Taxes, lawyer stuff, stuff having to do with like website analytics, all that stuff is coming in, and then like submissions are, sometimes get mixed into that. And not all submissions are created equally, so there's a lot of stuff to sort through on that end. So just, Instagram, social media, where your portfolio is present, is always a good place.
Yeah, that must be hard, Mark. How hard is it to figure out when you're getting submissions, this guy, this girl looks like they've got a good work ethic, they've got their shit together, and this is someone we could work with, as opposed to the opposite where they kind of half-ass it, or it's not a fully formed concept or idea, and you kind of have to break the bad news to them that it's not for you. Is that a tricky thing to navigate?
Yeah, it is tricky because you never want to discourage somebody, and that decision could also be made, irrespective of their individual talent. Either, you can see some things that are problematic within their work where, it's whether it be just, they're close, but they need another year of, probably, honing their craft, and a rejection or something like that, or something that feels like a rejection could be very discouraging. So it always bothers me a lot when you got to like deliver, some news that somebody doesn't want to hear. But, for us, the biggest thing, is, we're very, very like team oriented and stuff like that. So, not only had Ray reached out to me, but he had reached out to other creators on the team and asked, hey, what's it like, and this, that, and the other thing. Cause at least within our organization, that your success will be dictated by how well you're working with the other illustrators and stuff like that. And I'd see it as a microcosm of the whole indie scene, because, I saw somebody post something the other day. They say, if you want to make indie comics, you need to support indie comics, and that's just so true. So, you just have to talk to people, and you have to be, willing to put yourself out there and start relating to people. And, Ray jumped right on board. He did, jumped right at the opportunity to do the variant cover for Digital Lizards of Doom, book 3. So like the amount of stress that pulled off of Gabe's plate, because he's like, oh, because everyone wants that cool variant cover, right? And he's like, well, who am I going to get? Who, whatever. And then all of a sudden, like Ray's like, boom, here it is. And it's such a dope cover. And it's just like, that puts so much energy back into the team, right? Because like, every creator is dealing with like a whole catalog of wins and losses in every given week, of setbacks and things, and getting something like that. I mean, Gabe still's like, like glowing about the fact that he's got that cover.
Now, we just had another member of Talking Pop Culture decide to get out of bed, and he looks like he's pretty much straight out of bed. So I'll just bring in Nick here.
Hey, Nick.
That would be ridiculous.
So obviously, Nick, we're talking to Mark and Ray Garza from Lesser Known Comics. You decided to join us. I was going to ask I'm going to let Rod ask you the questions below. First, Ray, do you also collect comics and trades and omnibuses by any chance?
So I have.
Okay. Oh, you were.
So you talk. I've talked enough.
No, I'm so sorry. I understand what you're saying, but sometimes a few words escape me. It's the thick Australian accent. But you asked if I collect comics.
Yeah. Do you collect comics or say omnibuses, for example?
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, I'm nowhere near where like Rocket's collection is, but I like Rocket behind you. I can see the Mike Mignola Hellboy collection. I have like half of those, and I have like a decent little library. So I do collect time.
It's not to sell. It's just because Rod's going to ask you a question, because we have a segment called Hot Takes at the moment on our channel, where we ask a very controversial question. We all debate it, and then the YouTube mob come at us with picks and forks. So,
but we welcome it.
My question is: do you also collect omnibuses? by any chance, or trades, or books?
The reason Matt asks is because this week my hot take that I presented to the group was this sort of stuff shouldn't be, the high end stuff shouldn't be reprinted. I think that the lower tier, there's floppies and there's trades, and we should reprint that way. But I think if you buy the tippy top version of a book, that some amount of prestige should come with that, and you should be assured that later on down the track, everyone else can't just pick it up at a cheaper price or anything like that. So that's where Mark's coming from. That was our hot take of the week. And what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, do you think they should be reprinted or not?
Yeah. Feel free to tell me that I'm completely wrong.
No, I don't think you're wrong, because I definitely relate a little bit to that, but not necessarily like. So I had a similar experience of what you were talking about, but not with an omnibus or a comic book. But I had like a while back, I bought a really awesome prestige version of Dune, the first Dune book, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool, this is so sweet. Like limited edition, had like a foreword by I believe it was Brian Herbert, all this stuff. It's really cool. And then the rest of the Dune books came in that same style. And I never got around to buying past like the second one. And suddenly a new editions came in, and they were completely different, still super nice. But I didn't like, now my collection was all mishmashed. I couldn't buy the whole collection. The ones I had bought had never existed, don't exist anymore. Oh yeah, that's awesome, yeah. So no,
you're allowed.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I think that whatever, especially on the indie stuff. Well, so we don't have a lot of omnibuses just because of the way that indie stuff rolls out. So I actually have any given day. This is only one of 3 boxes. This is all full of random assortment of the Kickstarters that we back. The nice part about running a comic book company is that buying comics now become tax deductible. And
wait, can you like buy other comics and claim it on tax?
Research purposes.
Research, brother.
That's it, man. When I worked in video game sales, I joked, and my boss goes, "Claim them on tax, man," and I did. I bought so many video games. Yeah, claimed my Xbox Live subscription too. I 12-year-old thought about my mum.
Well, I'm gonna try that. I just registered an ABN the other day, so I might, which is a business number. I might just start saying I got a comic company and I'm just gonna buy books and claim them on tax and just claim that it just never happened. The company, I guess. I don't know you can do that.
You just have to edit that part out of this so that this is not like in a deposition sometime.
Yeah, I know, right? Mark's gonna get a call from the IRS.
Before
what do we call it here? The tax department here. What's it called? What's our IRS called here?
The ATO.
ATO.
I want to ask Ray before I forget. Ray, when Mark was talking about how you kind of brought your concept over to Lesser Known and presented everything, I'm really curious. You can tell me. Don't answer if you don't want to. But had you gone elsewhere and been knocked back, or did you have it in with other indie publishers? Or was Mark your first port of call? I'm really curious because I think it's good for people to know that there's going to be knockbacks. Like when you said the first time you approached, you didn't really hear anything back, but you were persistent. You had another go, and look how it's turned out. It's turned out brilliantly. And if you hadn't, it was such a sliding door moment.
Honestly, he was the first one I reached out to. Before that, I'm not joking. Before that, I had just done like local comic book shops, and I'd gotten some like rejections from local comic book shops, which is weird because a lot of them take them on consignment. But like the big one here in Austin, Texas, I'm not going to name them because screw them. So I kept reaching out to them and like showing it to them, and like I was emailing with the main person, and they're like, yeah, bring it over. And then at one point they stopped answering me, so I would show up on their doorstep with like the comic and like, hey, I was talking to this person, could you give this to them? And they're like, yeah, sure. And I just never heard back. Other comic book shops were really cool. They're like, yeah, let's put it on here, and they gave it like a barcode. And so I had just been doing it locally, but reaching out to a wider market, or like to other to actual publishers, I had never done that, because in a way it was sort of like very unattainable. How am I gonna, like, what publisher is gonna want to take this on? I mean, like, are you kidding me? It's just me, and I come from a film background, so I've made a lot of short films. So rejection is like in my blood. Like I've submitted so many films to so many places, and I just like get rejected constantly. What does that say about my movies? I don't know. Anyway, but so when I reached out to Mark, and he was like, yeah, and I'm talking to him on the phone, and then he's like, yeah, so let's put Tank McGregor on the Lesser Knowns catalog. Like right after, I was like, this is a scam. What is this? This is not real. That's why I started calling other people in the lesser known crew, all the other artists, and just asking them like, hey, so this Mark guy, is he for real? Like, what's going on? What is lesser known comics? And then they were like, yeah, no, it's a real thing, you know. And little by little, I was like, oh, wow, cool. Yeah. Let's do this.
I think the one caveat though, I said, hey, like, we are a new company, right? We've been doing this, less than 2 years. And I was like, it was funny. Like, we were working with Gabe, for Digital Lizards of Doom. He said, oh, it's so great to be working with professionals. And I was like, dude, I reserve the right to screw up some like simple stuff. Like, it will happen at some point, so as long as we have like a good relationship where we can be transparent and honest and open, because I'm going to deliver some news at some point where I'm going to be like, hey, remember that thing I didn't think I was going to screw up? Well, here we are. But we're like, with Ray's personality and demeanor and a lot of the other folks, it's so much easier to recover from something like that when, that relationship so honest and open, because it happens both on the illustrator side or the creator side where, we're like, hey, let's get those pages. And then they're like not in the right size, or there's something wrong with it. And there's a setback, or, hey, remember that thing that I said I edited? Well, there's still more edits, but as long as it's, the more the and you build that relationship, then like, you're like, all right, we'll figure it out. We'll get through it together and stuff like that. Cause definitely had the experience where over some trivial stuff, right? Like things that don't even like, we're not even like any sort of significant or even noticeable thing, you run into some creators where they're just, they just go from 0 to 50, like, I had one instance where I went and checked my phone later in the day, and there was just like this angry, like audio message. And it was like, generally if you got issues, just sending an audio message of screaming like into the void is not like a good start, so like, but I think that's one of the reasons too, to really focus on like the climate and the culture, like within the team. Cause, that's such a waste of time, right? Like the whole, okay, let's get mad or point fingers or do anything like that, get bent out of shape. Like any time spent doing that is time not fixing the problem. And I'm even more to the idea of like, I'm almost more glad when someone's like, yeah, that was my bad, because it's like, we've identified where the issue is. That means we can solve it now, right? When you have a climate where people are pointing fingers at each other, then it's like, well, I got to untangle that whole mess before we can even figure out what the problem is. So luckily we don't have, that issue within the team. That's, something we're blessed with.
Yeah, right. Right. To pivot slightly, Ray, I'm really interested in your process, being the artist and the writer, how you actually work in terms of, do you plot, or do you kind of do you ink while you pencil at the same time? How does your whole process work doing double duty?
Well, with the first book, right now I'm 90 pages into book 2, and the process has been differently there because I learned a lot in the first book. But in the first book, it was very much like I wrote a 15-page outline, not even an outline. I wrote a script, like if it were a movie script.
Yeah.
I didn't have like page 1, panel 1, this character says this character says that. I would write like a scene, like if it were a movie, and like the dialogue. And I would just go like nuts on the dialogue. And then I would just have the script next to me and draw like based on what people were saying, like I would just like doodle it, and that's it. I never made any like thumbnails. I never made any like overall plan on how to do it. It was just very it was very flowy, you know, it just flowed out of me as I was doing it. And I wasn't married to the script, you know. Sometimes I would just think of an actual visual and then just draw a visual and then say like, oh, this could be a good scene for that. So I'd put it here and then I'd work the words around it and like, oh, and then it just so little by little, like it took shape into the story, you know, and it became a cohesive thing. Sometimes I would like, a lot of times actually, I would draw something or a character in a certain pose and it didn't look like what I was going for, but it looked like he was doing something else. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll have him do that instead. So then like the scene would change to like fit that pose and it would become a joke or it become just a whole new scene or something funny, you know? I had written a scene for a movie which involved a bunch of robots, cannibal robots around a campfire. Cannibal robots because they eat other robots. And it really had nothing to do with like Tank McGregor, but it was such a cool scene and I needed to like pad it out that I put it into the Tank McGregor book and I like shaped it so that I adapted it so it could be part of the story and it worked out very, very well. So it was very much just like a Frankensteining of like ideas and just whatever occurred to me on the spot, you know. The second book I'm doing is also Tank McGregor. I'm a little better at that, but I'm also a little worse actually because I have my beginning, middle, and end in my head, and I write it, and I sort of plan it out beforehand with thumbnails and quick sketches. But for the most part, I know where I'm getting, but I don't know how I'm getting there. So it's sort of like going as I go along. But it's proving to be a pain, kind of. So I need to be better at planning. Is the point of this rant.
Are you self-editing as you go, or are you bouncing stuff off Mark, or how's that working?
I haven't bounced anything off Mark yet. I do plan to. I mean, I just recently, actually, this last weekend, finished the first chapter of book 2, where I'm like, all right, this is my director's cut. This is my version. I wouldn't change a thing. Now I'm ready to show it to people and see what they think, see what they would like, what they would change, what they think could work, what doesn't work, what they think is funny, what they think falls flat. So I'm actually going to start sending that out to other lesser known artists and just writers and Mark himself and just people just to read it and tell me what you think, you know. But I'm also very protective of my, not that like I wouldn't want to show it to them, I want to show it to them, but I'm not the best person at taking critique. But the fact that I recognize that makes me good, right? I don't know.
Well, then what happens if someone turns around? What happens if someone turns around and goes, "Oh, no, I think you should change this"? What, like?
Well, I'd be like,
would you
why?
take offense to it, or would you?
No, if it's a good reason. The thing, so the way I function is immediately I'm like, oh, this fucking guy crazy. I don't know what I'm talking about. You know, like I'm not gonna listen to it. But I let it simmer for about a day or two, and most of the time I'm like, no, they got a point. Like, you're right, I should. If the idea of what they say stays with me, then there's something to it, and I have to like pay attention to it after like a day or so, you know. But if after a day or so I really maintain my initial position that it was a bad idea, I won't use it. You know, I know I'm right and they're wrong.
Does that mean, like, I don't know how it works. Like, I worked at like a indie record label, and I know that like I used to write the songs and that. And I know with songwriting, if someone adds 2 words to a hook or a chorus, just literally you take 2 words, they need to get credited as a writer. How does that work with, like, if someone was to say, oh, you should do this, and one dialogue change, you know, one sentence is changed to what they said, do they then get the writing credit as well, or is it just still purely you? How does that work? I don't know if both of you can answer or how it works. I'm curious.
Yeah, we don't really do anything like that, you know, here. I mean, because in addition to publishing, I'm writing, you know, a number of books, because we're split, like we're both the Marvel model, but then also the Image model, and the fact that we actually have the lesser known universe, which is mostly the stuff that I'm writing. It's stuff that there's, you know, multiple titles that actually exist in the same universe. And then the creator-owned stuff, you know, that people come with their own things, those exist outside of that universe. Now, I'm looking forward to doing Easter eggs and stuff like that, where, you know, maybe in one of mine, you know, they're past a movie theater and it's the Tank McGregor movie, you know, like up on the marquee or something like that. But other than that, you know,
and I would sue him.
that's
how that works.
But yeah, I mean, the stuff that I write, you know, it goes to You Met Charlie, you know, last time we did the show, you know, yeah, I think there's a way too of, you know, getting feedback that's not, you know, like with music, right? If you show someone a song, right, and they're like, this would be a real good B-side track, you know, that's a nice way of being like, this isn't your best work, you know, like, you know, so she's good at giving feedback, you know, like that's kind of, you know, softens the blow a little.
Nice. You said, Ray, that you took your books to the comic stores and they were, is that you just go in there, give them 20 books and say, sell it this, so I get this percentage. Is that how that works? Or
yeah, yeah, surprisingly, a lot of them don't have very set rules on how they process that kind of stuff, because some of them would say like, okay, and then how much are you selling them for? I'm like, well, this much. All right, so we'll take 70%. You keep 70%, we'll take 30%. I'm like, all right, that sounds fair. But then I'll show up and they're like, all right, we sold 20 books, but it'll be like a different guy from the one I initially made a deal with, and he would just pay me like full price for them, and I'm not gonna correct him. So I'm like, oh, cool, awesome, you know. So there's very little process behind that. Other stores, they don't make any sort of like percentage deals like that. They just go like, yeah, if we sell any, you'll get 100% of it for sure. They all have different rules and regulations how they handle that kind of stuff.
So have you had to pull them off the shelf now that you're with Lesser Known Comics, or are they still in there?
No,
I can pull them off the shelf.
Yeah, we keep and that's what, so we operate like very much like an incubator model, so that people can come in and it should be a very light touch from the publisher. It should only just be additional resources that creator can use, you know, to get a bigger megaphone for their book. And from my perspective, you know, adding, regardless of our profit take, you know, which we try and keep as low as possible. And then, like, for example, with Ray, with all the books that he's already printed, we don't take anything from any book that he's already printed. That's his investment. He should get 100% of anything. So, but just having good books in the catalog, you know, lifts everybody up. So, you know, we try and make that incentive really nice for where a creator can come in and not feel that there's like a lot of risk, or that they're going to get hosed, or they're going to get locked into a deal where they can't escape, or that they can't make additional deals outside of themselves or whatever, or outside of, you know, because to me, it's like, okay, if you wanted to take your book and also sell it on a different platform that I wasn't going to get around to as the publisher to get it there, like, that's good for both parties, you know. You know, our market penetration right now is, you know, small enough that there's plenty of pie to go around. We don't need to, you know, split that up unnecessarily.
So then, like, again, just going by independent music label, I know I'll be different. So you're publishing the book with record labels. We record the song, the artist, it's the masters is ours. We own the song, not them. Is that how it works? Like, how's it going to work? Like, is Tank McGregor, like, when it's published through you, does that mean like you guys still own it, or do you give all your creators the full ownership of and the rights of the character? You get what I mean?
So yeah, all I own is the Lesser Known Comics logo that gets put on the book. You know, everything else is owned by Ray. You know?
Really cool. Ray, if Marvel just, or DC or Image or someone comes around and says, "Hey mate, Ray, we want your book." Again, with independent record labels, we can say, "Cool, I'll sell you my artist for 20, 30 grand," which never happened because I wouldn't be sitting here if it did. Is that the same with you guys? Would it be like, you know, is there contracts or?
Yeah, so the contracts are we're actually in the process of actually like revamping those because of one, we started growing faster than we anticipated. Also, when we initially started, the majority of what we were making, I was writing. So I own like a lot of the IP. So when the creator owned stuff came in, those contracts didn't make sense because, you know, it's a totally different beast. So in the process of getting the creator owned stuff figured out, of course, like being victims of our own success, Digital Lizards of Doom is in discussion for an animated series and mobile gaming deals and things like that. And we're like, oh crap, now we got to figure out like how that all works and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So generally, you know, the principle remains that, you know, the goal is if somebody offers, you know, Ray a dump truck full of money, you know, to go somewhere else, that we're like throwing him a party. Let's, you know, do this, you know, just invite us to the after party, you know, with the fancy, you know, champagne and stuff, you know. And, one of the other things that'll be complicated that, you know, going back to, you know, the climate of the culture that I have confidence that we're going to work out is when we start spending serious money on advertising and marketing and things like that, you know, obviously that can be at odds when it's like, well, we want you to be able to leave at any point. But if we've made a significant investment in a particular book, you know, we don't want to be left holding the bill. So those are the types of things that, you know, we're still in the process of figuring out. But generally at this point, everything just falls to the benefit of the doubt to the creator, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's like their baby. And the last thing we would want, especially at this stage, you know, irrespective of like how much I care about each creator individually, like we would never want to have the appearance that a creator was unhappy and couldn't leave, you know, or, you know, felt like they got the bait and switch on what the deal was or something like that.
Speaking of, Mark, you mentioned you guys have kind of grown a lot bigger than in a short period of time than you anticipated. How do you, with that in mind, how do you manage expanding your universe, bringing out more titles versus really trying to build a solid foundation on the books you've already put out there and building those titles? How do you manage those two areas?
Not well right now. Yeah, that's a real tough part right now is, I think it can be discouraged. So, like one of our illustrators is working on an anthology of our first 13 books from the lesser known universe. And that's literally because I've been too busy to give him the next script, you know, but we were like, hey, 13 is a good place to like put us all together. It's a good, like, you know, we have witchcraft themes in our books. So we're like, yeah, let's do the first 13 anthology. But it's been a struggle, and, you know, I just need to continue to, you know, bring people in that can take portions of that workload and be dedicated to, you know, to just that, you know, because so much of this requires specialized expertise, whether it's conventions or social media or websites. All that stuff is, you know, there's no way to do that and be a jack of all trades on that. It won't work, or I just won't sleep, or my wife will, you know, be mad at me all the time. You know, those are the options.
Yeah. And what's next for you personally in terms of your books personally? What have you got coming?
We have, so those first, so on the website, we have, the first, I think LKC number 1 through 7 on there. So, so I was reading a lot of those Golden Age, right? So, you know, I had like the idea, like action comics, and you know, Superman, then obviously Superman has, you know, eventually did the own series and stuff like that. So we have been releasing them as like lesser known comics, number 1 through 7. And so we have, you know, 4 and 7 and 2. So all the characters from this will start getting their own.
That's my favorite one.
Their own titular series, you know. So this one will be Oaklandia, where it's Children of the Corn meets Pineapple Express. You know, it's they're trying to outrun these murderous psycho children. But yeah, those will be you know, they'll start to trickle in, I think, this summer, you know, those first 22 pagers and longer, you know, but generally mine will end up taking a back seat on the timeline to the creator owned stuff because well, it's easier to disappoint myself than it is to disappoint like you know, somebody else who's like, hey, when's my book coming out, man? You know, so but I mean, it's a good problem to have, I guess, you know, having too many books in the queue.
I'm sure Nick has questions about that title you just pitched. That's right up his alley.
A little bit. No, that's obviously a very intriguing premise. I'm imagining that either the children are high or the people running away are high.
The corn is the drug.
Yeah.
Could be. Turns out none of it was real. It was just a massive trip that the town had together.
Well, you can find out by using...
I figured out the plot.
Nick, you can find out by using the code TalkingPop15 to receive 15% off.
There you go.
To read your book.
Cheeky little plug right there. No,
hey, Ray, question. If you could draw and write any character, whether it's superhero or, you know, whatever, who would it be? I'd love to know.
Like officially, that already exists?
Yeah.
Not Seagal. It's not Steven Seagal.
Not Steven Seagal. I mean, Hellboy was always a huge inspiration to me. Honestly, if I hadn't ever read the Hellboy books, Tank McGregor wouldn't exist. I mean, the DNA of Hellboy is in those books. So, I mean, if I could, I would have to say Hellboy. I would love to do a Hellboy story or a Hellboy book or some sort of fan fiction Hellboy stuff, if given the chance.
Hellboy movies?
You know, I am of the Guillermo del Toro versions. I am not a fan of the newer one, which is odd because, like, story-wise, the newer one is a little closer to the comic books, but it just didn't translate so well, you know, and it was so shoddily done that it wasn't a good movie. But the first two,
it ended crap.
Yeah. I mean, like, the first one is one of my all-time favorites. The second one is a little weaker, but I still love it. But yeah, I do like the movies.
Well, you're talking about the 80s because this is obviously talking pop culture. We do movies and that as well. So, question, you're talking about your 80s and 90s action heroes. Who's your favorite?
Van Damme.
Van Damme.
Jean-Claude Van Damme was
bad Van Damme or good Van Damme? You know, like best of the best Van Damme or Bloodsport Van Damme?
All of it.
Van
Damme. Van Damme and everything that came with it. I mean, obviously, like, it was sad to see late 90s his cocaine-induced failures and how his movie started losing popularity and he started being not as quick on his feet. But then, like, he had a good comeback, you know, and he got clean and he released that movie JCVD, which was released on my birthday. I remember when it came out, which I took as a huge sign of, like, this is perfect, you know, and I saw it and it made me cry. And it was just like, man, he's back. And of course, he didn't really make anything substantial after that, but it's still Van Damme forever. I mean,
don't forget that awesome commercial of him doing the splits on the trucks going backwards. That was amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Still some debate whether he actually did that, but I think he did do that for real. But yeah, I must have watched Kickboxer 2 every day from, like, ages 5 to 13. You know, I mean, like, I don't know what my parents were doing letting me watching that when I was 5, but yeah, I was watching it.
I mean, Kickboxer 1, I used to have to ask my parents, what Tong Po raped her? What does that mean? I had no idea. And my parents were like, oh, you're not watching any more Van Damme.
Yeah. The thing is, oh man, like, I don't know. So can we, like, swear on here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know. But, like, in when I was little, there's a line in Kickboxer where Tong Po is taunting Van Damme, and he tells him, like, you bleed like Mei Ling, good fuck. And when I was little, I thought he was saying Mylene, good fun. So to me, I was like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. Yeah.
Manage your own senses. If that's the Friday night 7 o'clock special, they would have edited it anyway. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I had the VHS.
Yeah.
So I had the uncensored version.
Van Damme. The only ones I reckon I watched was Bloodsport, Kickboxer, and Street Fighter. I can't remember anything else he was in.
Universal Soldier. Luke
Oh,
Devereaux.
Universal Soldier. That's it. Fuck, that was the other one.
Man, Universal Soldier, the
Wrong
Quest.
Bet.
Wrong Bet.
Oh, what's the one with the twins? He had a twin brother.
Yeah,
Double
double
Impact.
impact.
Double Impact. That was it. Yeah.
All classics.
Yeah.
But you didn't like Under Siege.
Double Impact actually holds up. Like you see him and like he's acting in two different characters completely, and he's doing a good job, man.
What about Hard to Kill with that mullet?
Oh, Hard Target.
Hard Target, not Hard to Kill.
Hard to Kill is a Steven Seagal movie. God damn
Seagal.
it.
Yes, it is. It's Seagal. That's the one where he's in a coma for 7 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Con Air, would they kill him in like the first 10 minutes, right? And was it Con Air?
That's
executive decision.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
the plane and gets split and okay.
He wasn't meant to die in the first 10 minutes, but he's such an asshole on set that they were like, let's fucking get rid of this guy, and they killed him off.
They made their own executive decision with that one.
What was that one Seagal did about the Alaskan, like the Earth? It was On Deadly Ground.
On Deadly Ground,
where it was like
he's on Alaska fighting evil oil. Evil oil.
Nah, the one I remember most of Steven Seagal, I know you hate him, is Under Siege with Tommy
Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones, and had
Tommy
that
Lee
knife
Jones.
fight.
Erica Eleniak coming
Yeah.
What films did you used to do then, Ray?
What? I'm sorry?
You said you wrote films and that. What kind of films did you do? Action or?
Well, my love for film started with like horror. So I started doing a lot of like tiny little horror short films at my house with my brother. Then I went to film school and I just kind of started doing these sort of pseudo sci-fi movies. And then I went through my like coming of age phase. So I made a feature film in 2009 where I was all about like a kid like growing up, and I can't watch it today. It's kind of pretentious.
So it's like Roma.
I haven't seen Roma, but I take that as a compliment. Maybe it is like Roma. I don't know.
Well, it's Oscar nominated.
Exactly. But really, it's just anything that interests me, which just happens to be like sort of like down to earth sci-fi. You know, the last thing I did was a short film about actually that wasn't the last thing I did, but I did a short film about a group of women in a book club. They get together every Sunday to read Jane Austen. But one morning they find a portal, like a wormhole in their living room. And it just becomes about like, oh shit, how are we going to do this? We have to do the book club. This is going to be really embarrassing. We can't get rid of it. And we just got to have this like book club meeting with a wormhole. So I like sort of irreverent things like that.
That's great.
Mark, since we're talking films, what about, I know you got your series, and I only remember the main character's name because it's my girlfriend's name, Daniela. If you could cast any actress to play Daniela, who would it be?
Oh gosh. You know, she doesn't look like her, how she's drawn, but what's her name? Who she was in she's in the new Spider-Man's, is it
Zendaya?
Yeah.
Just because that like because you know, Daniela in the books is always just like, fuck it, we'll figure it out later, like type of thing, and
yeah,
she's really good at playing that. You know, so that's the one that comes like right to mind. Yeah, I think yeah, and then you know that, and she's amazingly good looking.
Yeah. She's my favorite. I love it. She's the only reason I went and watched Spider-Man. The first one, and then the story got me addicted to the rest of them. Okay, believe it or not, she's in Europia, and I haven't even watched that. And
Euphoria.
Euphoria, that's it.
Yeah,
Europia.
Same thing.
Yeah. We all knew what he meant.
Amazing.
Europia. We're gonna add that to the book of Matt idioms.
was Broad Baker.
Baker.
They give me shit because I pronounce names wrong. That's why, Ray, when I said your last name, I was hoping I got it right, so I can't get shit.
Some of
Yeah,
Matt's
right.
great ones have been Ed Broadbaker and Brian Michael Bendias.
What was that one? Europia?
Europia. Yeah, that's another one to the list.
Endearing, Matt. We love it.
Yeah, we
I
love
know you're doing it on purpose just to make us go,
it.
Someone's got to be the clown of the crop. Well, there you have it. There's, I think, near the hour mark. So that's another great interview with awesome, lesser-known comics, and with writer illustrator Ray Garza. Give your so your book's coming out.
His.
Oh, well, mine. Well, Mark's in charge of that. I believe the Kickstarter gets launched sometime in April.
Yeah, so the variant cover that he's doing for Digital Lizards of Doom, that's part of the Kickstarter launch on the 29th of March. And then right now we're set for 26 April for Tank McGregor. But, with all things, the Digital Lizards of Doom got pushed back a week. So, hopefully we get better and we'll just like keep on a, tight schedule and stuff like that.
And
yeah, it's a nice.
Tank McGregor will be on lesserknown.com soon, but if you want to know more about it, you can go to tankmcgregor.com and look it up there.
awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, you can already get the book, straight from Ray right now. So, definitely, yeah, you can get the before he sold out version. Yeah.
And as you got an Instagram there, Ray, that people can find you on, that you want to give a plug?
Yeah, all Tank McGregor stuff goes to @TankMcGregor. My personal one is KOREE85. And that's I do some art stuff there, but it's also like pictures of my dog and stuff like that. But all my art goes to Tank McGregor Comic.
There you go, ladies. He's got his pictures of his dog, so head over.
McGregor's got 2 G's. That's the other thing.
Ooh,
Yeah, that's right.
I'll get you guys to send me the links so I can put them all in the
put them down
description
below.
I'll send you the
And
links.
then Lesser Known Comics, Mark, where can everyone find you guys at?
Yeah, lesserknowncomics.com is always the best place to stop first. And then Instagram @lesserknowncomics. Those are the best 2 spots to go. Twitter, Lesser K Comics. That's the best we could do.
Still work.
And if you are going to go on their site, Lesser Known Comics, and purchase something, again, you can use the promo code TalkingPop with the number 15, TALKINGPOP15, and you'll receive 15% off your purchase. So go and do that. I have read the Lesser Known Comics kind of universe series. They're good fun. They're actually really good, and I give Mark props to them. So go and check them out, and I'm going to be looking forward to Ray's book since it's going to have a lot of 80s and 90s action film plugs in there. Hang on, say it up. Let me get. Oh no, not my ugly face. There we go. There's the book right there.
Yeah.
That is really nice cover.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Looks like it's on thick cardstock too.
Yeah.
Oh, don't give it away.
Spoilers.
Oh, no, wait.
When you guys
know
have
it all.
enough content for each individual
You can buy
series, consider doing some nice hardcovers and omnis.
Yeah. And then one of the other things that we try and do, so for our international orders and stuff like that, because we know it costs forever, it costs a ton to go overseas. So we try and throw in things that are exclusive to international, supporters. So like, for example, LKC number 3, we have like the holochrome cover, and that's only for people ordering outside the US,
Oh,
Yeah.
you got me.
Yeah.
You got
So that's, it's fun to do the variants because it actually, it's all in Mandarin, and we were able to have it say an ignorant American publishing company in Mandarin. So I don't know what the next one's going to look like, but yeah, we'll keep doing those exclusives.
I guarantee, Mark, if you just get a marker and just put like one of 50 or something, Rod will have already purchased it by now.
Yeah.
I'll find some room.
Well, there you go, everyone. Please go check him out. Support the indie scene. The indie scene is just as important as the big boys, because I see as we support the indie scenes, it's the ranks that the indie people come up to the big leagues eventually. And I'm sure Lesser Known Comics will eventually become one of those big leagues since they're growing so quick in 2 years, eh?
A little less, yeah.
A little less. So, no, they're flying. So go and check them out. Thank you very much, Ray and Mark, for joining us. I know it might be late over there. It's early over here. But, yeah, we appreciate it. Fellas, Nick, Rocket, thank you for joining us.
No worries. Pleasure.
Appreciate
it.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
And
you.
we'll speak to you guys all soon. Take care.